What's up, friends? This is another round of fun with Azure. This is part 9, ADF part 9 to be more specific. So left hand side, as usual, is the stuff that we did last time. So we started looking into the diagnostic logs, right? So we configured an Azure Data Factory for collecting those, and we collected them into the Azure Diagnostics table, right? There's multiple choices regarding to that, but we chose the diagnostics table. And then we query that one to get information about the activities on that, the runtime. You know, how many times it executed, and what the errors were, if there were errors and stuff around that. So that's good. It was a start. There's a lot more that I want to show at some point on Kusto and diagnostic logs and stuff. But this time, I want to switch to basically getting a setup going that allows us to run a job scheduled, possibly also with a database involved. And for that one, we need to get the database set up and also the key vault, because obviously we want to also monitor the key vault, the database, basically all the pieces to get a full picture of what's going on. And so we still need to build a bit more on infrastructure. So I actually did this already build out. So what I'm going to show you as a first part of this video today is how this is going to look like, the build out. And we're going to start, like I pointed out here, with the key vault and possibly add a secret depending on how far we get. I hope we can get something done here today. But as we then continue, we'll see where we go. But the overall course is still to follow this picture here, right? This image. So eventually we're gonna have some private endpoints, but I want to start with key vault today and go from there. So let me head over, this is our storage account, and you see I already have a storage. Sorry, this is our resource group, and I already have a key vault deployed. So building a key vault is relatively straightforward, but I'm gonna do it real quick. And of course, I mean provisioning the key vault, right? So basically, just type in Azure Key Vault, and I think it's only key vault is sufficient, of course. Then I cancel out of that. I say create here. And there's not a whole lot here in terms of decisions that I need to make. So let me see here. So obviously the subscription, the resource group, enter the name of the key vault. So this is obviously something, that makes sense to you. Project name, some sort of a date, whatever your naming convention is there. Sample, okay, and then the region, and then the pricing tier. There's like a standard and the premium. There's the HSM extra that you get with the premium, but let's not go there for now. We can definitely cover this later, and if you're interested, read up on it on your own time. But this is kind of what we have here. So this is the soft delete enabled. This is by default. And then this is basically making sure that you can basically restore if someone deletes, some sensitive passwords or keys or secrets or whatever there is. And of course, that's the duration for it. And then we have the purge protection, disable purge protection. Okay. What you need to be careful with is if you enable it, you cannot delete them. Typically, I don't do this if it's not a production environment. Now, in a production environment, definitely want to enable this. Okay, so then it's basically not possible for someone else to delete the key vault, which in a real production environment could contain 50 hundreds of secrets, and collecting this all over again could be a huge amount of work. Okay, so let's go to the next slide here. Let's see what we have in between. We have access policies, and you can make your selections there. It basically adds the provisioner into the in the current access policies, there's also the rollback access control, and this is kind of important later when we get to it. And then here we have networks, right? So what I did here, and this is maybe important for the next couple of sections, and it's also important for preparing us for the sense of working with private endpoints. I did not choose all networks here with the one that I already provisioned. And let me show you that real quick. It's probably going to take a little bit more time to discuss the provisioning, but I think it's worth that we cover this a bit more in detail. So let me go back to the Key Vault, and there's my resource group. And then go into here. This is the one that I already provisioned. And I did not provision this with public access. So when I go here to networking, hopefully I find it at some point. It's here, okay. You see that it selected networks, and I did actually create a new subnet where I have this looked at or put at, right? So that's a Key Vault, the test subnet that I generated. You remember in the PowerPoint, when I go back here, there's actually only 2 subnets so far, the VM and the PE, but I added this third subnet, and we would also see this if I go back into the networking section. You would see that as well. Let me do that real quick, because I feel like it's definitely worth the time to spend a bit more here. The reason why I'm doing this, I want to start, being a bit more secure, because having stuff all with private access isn't obviously the right way of doing this. It's good for like quick prototyping and things like that, but that's definitely not what you can do all the way through. So I'm looking for the network interface, network security, storage, blah blah blah. Virtual network, here we go. Virtual network, and then here on the subnets, I'll see the 3 subnets. And this is one that I added. Consider this more like a test for now. We could actually, so that we have some options here, we could actually add the other one that I'm about to generate here just with all networks. And that gives us some comparison points. And you see here the selected networks, and there's private endpoints, right? So there's nuances in differences, and it's definitely important to know when to choose what. So the other one has selected networks, there's no private network, but this one we're going to do all networks for that one, which is not an ideal configuration for production workloads, but it's good enough for here. And in the access policy stuff, I want to make sure enable access to, we're not using this for virtual machines. For resource manager, deploy templates, there are some methods that read up a bit more on those on the information section. Some of these, if you apply those, you have to have this enabled, right? Disk encryption, for instance, that's for VMs, right? Because then you need encryption keys from the Key Vault, and then you have to enable this. I think Access Vault, the Vault access policies, that's the older way. The newer way is likely role-based access control, but we can go with that for now, and then we switch it later. Networking for now, I do all networks. Okay, view and create. And then create this boy. Okay, so this is creating, and while this is creating, I'm gonna go back real quick, and we're likely gonna need a bit more time for this, and need to do another video. So what I did here with this other one, let me go back to the other Key Vault, which is in the resource group. Okay, let me close out of that one. And so I have this Key Vault provisioned here. This is the one that we put behind, or that we put behind the network, remember? Let me go back here, networking, behind the network. Okay, and then obviously I added some IP addresses, okay. And then I added the allow trusted Microsoft services is enabled. So normally this would in a totally secure environment, and we're gonna go there later with the private endpoints. We're gonna even disable this one, okay, so that we don't, even a Microsoft service is not a trusted service anymore, okay. This is then very secure. But so let me go back to the data factory. I think then the whole thing gets a bit more clearer why we even need a keyboard and stuff. So remember the initial job we have here is we have an on-premise SQL server, and let me go to the PowerPoint real quick. So on-premise SQL server, we have some data there, and we use a data factory to stage it into a storage account. This is already, we did this job already, right? And in a real production scenario, we would spend a whole lot more time on thinking about incrementally loading and making sure the data is in good shape and all of that. But just here to work on the concepts. So we get it into here, into the storage. And then from storage, we would further process this into Azure SQL to stage it there, and could use stored procedures to massage it further. Or we could also, and we're going to cover that in the other series, we could use serverless in Synapse, right? So there's many ways of how to process this data further. At some point, we should actually make a session on when to use what type of processing for what type of outcome, right? I could see this being very valuable. But for now, let's just go with what we have. So we have basically a data factory that connects to an on-prem, gets the data into a storage account, and then from storage, we move the data into Azure SQL, right? To be able to authenticate to the on-premise SQL server, right? We need credentials. And in the first videos, let me go here. In the first videos, I did this by using basically this connection string, right? So here I'm using the self-hosted runtime against, this is the connection information to my VM. This is a private endpoint, so you'll not get there with that information anyway. But here the password is basically typed in, and there's no key vault, right? You can see that. And when I do test connection, this actually works, and we know that it works because the pipeline is working, and I get data into my storage account, right? I can pull it. Okay, so if I close that, that's all good. And then the second one here, this actually then uses the key vault. And it uses that Key Vault 1 linked service, you see here. And when I hit test connection, this also works, right? So here I'm already using a secret within the Key Vault that I set up to connect to that SQL server that I configured on the VM, right? So, and it was referring this one here, the Azure Keyboard 1, and this is actually the setup to that link service, right? So, but this is behind a VNet, so you got to be within the VNet to reach that. So that's that. Yeah, so that's how this works. So obviously now the Key Vault is provisioned, so we go to the resource, and we're way over time already, so I cannot do a whole lot more. We're gonna get into a second video on this here, and we do have time. That's all dandy. So so we have the new Key Vault set up, second one. So let me go to the networking. This is publicly accessible. It is. And then keys. And then I would actually secrets, right? This is where I need to go. And then here I generate my secret, my secret, right? And just to demonstrate, so from the other machine, so this is done, this is done. Okay, let me go over here, not here, not here. Sorry guys, let me go back. All right. So there's my key vault. This is the. I should actually have two now. Hey, here we go. Okay, so this is the key vault. So now what I want to show you, this is the one that I provisioned prior, and under secrets, I see a secret here, right? And there's a CIP string and a CNAME string. So I created two, and in the connection manager of the SQL here, the data factory, I should actually see the names what I pull, and you can see here it's CNAME string, right? So what I mean by that CNAME string, and the other one, what was it called again? CNAME, and one is CNAME CIP. So there's like two different nomenclature set up that I use. So let me go here. This is where I have a backup of this. So I think one was the one with IP is this pattern, right? And the other one is with the name of the service, this pattern, right? Both work the way I tested them. I just wanted to test them out, and then you see the parameters that I used. So all you got to do, and because I'm not gonna demonstrate this, all you got to do is basically grab this one and put it as a secret into the key vault, and then you have that one. You need to save it. There's like a duration window. Let me go back to the other one real quick and show you how this, at least the dialog, looks like. And refresh this one more time. Go down here. This one, I could definitely improve my, and I forgot a project. I forgot a team there as well. But that's the fun here of hacking around. So secrets. So if I do generate, this is what you need to do and provide all the proper information. So I could, as a user, and I'm going to set this up for next time so that we have this here. But there's nothing special that I would do. Now, the only other thing I need to do is, I don't want to forget that when I go to the other one, the other key vault that I set up, let me go to the, there was another change that is needed. So when I go secrets, yeah, I have those two, but I had to grant the managed identity of the data factory some permissions on this, right? And you see this in the access policies. Now I found it. It's not under IAMs or access control. It's actually here, access policies. You see here, this is basically what I had to do, right? Because right now, if you don't have that, you would not be able to connect and get those secrets, even if you have listed them. That's what I need to do next time. Then I can show this a bit more. But this is an important step. So here I added here add access policy, and then I granted these permissions. This allows the data factory then to connect to that service key vault, so that we can actually retrieve the password, the connection string, right? And then actually being able to connect to that SQL server that's in that VM, right? Because remember, this connection here, this linked service, does not provide the password no more within that dialog. You have to pull it from the key vault through the self-hosted. Well, the self-hosted runtime is means to connect to the SQL server, right? Because it's behind the firewall. But so this is kind of how this all ties together. The other thing where this is going to be interesting also, well, here it's definitely important internally when it comes to other services, especially when it comes to authenticating to a SQL server later, to the Azure SQL database. What we typically would do is work with a specific account but we can cover this later. But yeah, for now, I just want to wrap it up here, and then I'll show you in the next one how I added the secret, how I did the access policy, and then we should just go through the Azure Key Vault 2 setup, and then we could verify the different settings. Then eventually also understand the fact that one is behind or within a VNet and the other one isn't. What implications does that have, right? Because there are definitely implications on accessibility, and that's also an important topic at some point. Okay, hope that was somewhat helpful. I think there was quite a bit to cover on Key Vault, but let's chat next time. And yeah, leave me a comment with any feedback or any other hints or jokes, whatever you feel like. Have a good one. Cheers.